While the foundation of this philosophy rests in making sure that you and your client are prepared for anything that might come your way, you need to know who's on the other side of the table too. You need to know your opponent. Getting familiar with the players means knowing who's on the field. Knowing your opponent is about understanding what drives them. In politics, they call this opposition research, and we can do the same thing as real estate agents. I'm going to take you through this process of how I do this. It is a key part of the CODO method. You need to research the opposition, okay? And you have to do these three things. First, let's start with the address. Let's say I have a prospective new buyer that is really interested in this great home in Floral Park, which is a beautiful town on Long Island. Inventory here is low, so things move pretty fast, and we have an appointment to check it out later in the week. But I want to see what I can learn ahead of time and give myself a bit of a head start. This property is at 135 Mayfair Avenue, and it's listed for just over $1 million. I'll start with Zillow. You know, it's easy, get the basics, okay? Take a look at the listing, right? It's a nice house, tons of character, needs some upgrades, but it's move-in ready for the most part, and it's in a popular neighborhood. Next, I'm gonna check out the seller. It's being listed by Michael Sadis. Ha, look at that. Just happens to be a Serhant agent and one of our founding partners on Long Island. Crazy. Now, for the sake of this exercise, let's say he's with Ryan Real Estate. Now, I'm gonna open a new tab and see what I can find out about this guy, this agent, this Michael Sadis. Who is this fella? Just in case there's a Michael Sadis who's like a journalist or something, right? We wanna get the right guy. Okay, cool. So let's start with Realtor.com, right? Simple. This is also a great reminder that you need to keep your digital identity, your social media accounts, your Google business pages, your Facebook profile, all up to date at all times because people are looking into you all day long. So let's see who you are, Michael. Let's pull back the layers here. He's got several current listings. Nice. Has sold properties up to about $1 million and more. And if we look on the map, we can see that this is his only listing in Floral Park. This is juicy stuff. Most of his listings are a town or two over, where price points are lower. Now, despite these areas being within a few miles of each other, they are very different. Every town is locally bought and sold. Now, maybe this guy has sold dozens of properties in Floral Park, and yes, I could totally look that up, but for the sake of expedience, let's just assume that our buddy Michael rarely shows properties in that area. So that gives me the upper hand. This is a newer area for him and a higher price point than he's used to working with. He's in unfamiliar territory, all right? I'm learning. Now, a good general rule is the higher the price point, the more complex the negotiations. Not all times, but most times. Both buyers and sellers tend to be more particular. They're more experienced. They have their own money more often. You'll start to get into all sorts of details and concessions that you don't usually see with properties that are under $1 million. So Michael might be a little inexperienced, a little intimidated even. Maybe he's overly anxious to get this deal done because it'll push him into a new market. See what I'm getting at here? These are all the details that I'm gonna file away for later so I can use them to my advantage to get this deal done. And Jen Elise, later on in this course, is gonna talk to you about how the other agents on the other side of the deal's experience can actually help you get a deal done. Now, once you understand the basics of the property, turn to the data, okay? Starting with the sales history. These numbers are gonna tell you a story. How long the property has been with the current owner, how many times it's been on the market, has it been on for a while with price reductions, has it been on for a short period of time with price increases, who knows, right? All of that together. But to really know the story, you need to look beyond the basic numbers. When did the current owners purchase the property? Then research the market at the time. Did the previous owners get a deal or did they overpay? If they've been in the home for a long time, adjust for inflation. Just Google adjust for inflation, and you'll find calculators that'll do this for you. Or you can literally type, how much was $1 million in 1992? And the internet will tell you. It's an amazing, magical thing. And based on the current asking price, will they be losing money or will they be making money? Now, most people stop at the sales history, but because you are following the steps of CODO and you're here to be the ultimate closer, you are looking deeper. Yes, you are. You aren't just going to know the sales and price history, you are going to understand that history. You're going to digest it. Now, the second big piece of data are the comps. Now, I'm not going to walk you through this step by step because as an agent, you know the value of comps and you know how and where to find them. However, what you need to remember is this. Research the comps through the lens of the additional research you've just done and through the eyes of the other side. Most agents make the mistake of comping for their client. How does that do you any good? That's like telling yourself you look great before you go out at night. Do you really? How does the other side look? What do other people view you as? You need to compare the situation to the other side. Don't price a property by yourself in a vacuum with the seller, because every seller is going to think their house is worth 1,000 billion jillion Bitcoin or whatever it might be, right? What's the other side coming to the table with? What comps are they going to use? With this listing that we're talking about, Michael's in Floral Park, we have an agent working in a new area at a new price point with a property that the current owners have had on the market depending on your market and the types of properties that you're working with. There's a lot more that you can investigate. For example, property taxes, zoning regulations, local businesses and attractions. When they bought that house, was the zoning one thing and now it's something else, for better or for worse? What about the neighboring area? Was that trash dump there when they bought it and now it is, and that's why they really want to sell? What information about the address? What information about the data, about the comps, can you really pull together to paint the best picture of the opposing side? Now, you can find a complete checklist of things to research in your workbook, along with my notes from this listing specifically. So find a listing to practice with and see what you can learn. Take an extra couple minutes. There's so much you can find out online about the property you're going to be dealing with. And you never know which piece of information is going to be the golden ticket that you need to close the sale. Even if it's just about that agent or that seller. Who knew? Maybe you find out that the seller of the property recently, because you see them on LinkedIn, accepted a job on the other side of the country. That's why they're selling. That's good information to have. There's urgency there that, now you just found that out. Or maybe you just saw that on Facebook, Mr. and Mrs. Smith recently, as of a couple weeks ago, now go by Mr. Smith and Miss Not Smith anymore. That's also good information to have. Know the opposing players. What are their motivations? So to recap, the 3 key areas of research to complete immediately are the listing address, whether you're on the buy side or the sell side, the other agent's background, know who you're going up against, and all of the data. Now, bonus, is there a way for someone else in the cast of characters you identified in step 1 to influence the negotiation in your favor based on their underlying motivation? For example, does the mother-in-law, Phyllis, need an in-law suite? I think so. Is Phyllis going to be upset if her son-in-law, Bob, is putting her down in the basement like I did with my mother-in-law in my house, or up in the attic at certain homes due to the layout? You know, you got to know these things. Or is there a teenage kid who really wants a detached garage for his garage band that's never going to make it? I mean, it could make it. You never know these days. Or hot tech startup that he wants to set up because every hot tech startup starts in a garage. Can you play that motivation? Kids influence their parents more than anyone. You don't know until you list it all out. Now, one more example. Use LinkedIn to find everyone's background. Is there anything in common with you or any mutual friends? Can you use that to get you into their inner circle through mutual connection and that third-party validation? Can you run a background check on these people to see what comes up? Do your research. The best closers are investigative journalists. You're a detective putting the pieces together of this puzzle. And Jenelise is going to talk about that in a later chapter as well. But next up, let's move on to step 3, how to create the right kind of closing urgency.